Oh my god, hey! Welcome back to my Stagey YouTube channel. If you're seeing my face for the first time, my name is Mickey Joe and I'm obsessed with all things theatre. One of the most exciting shows of 2021 has just opened, and it's the revival of Spring Awakening at the Almeida Theatre. Spring Awakening was a 2006 Broadway musical that transferred from an off-Broadway run. It was very edgy, it was very alternative, and it captured the hearts of a young generation of theatregoers in a way that kind of nothing had really since Rent. The original Broadway production launched the careers of several huge stars: Skylar Astin, Jonathan Groff, Lea Michele, Krista Rodriguez, Andy Mientus, so many people, I can't even begin to name them all. When the production transferred to London's West End and played at the Novello Theatre, it similarly launched the careers of a bunch of young performers. People like Natasha Barnes, people like Evelyn Hoskins appeared in the original West End production of Spring Awakening. Various other exciting people. If you go and look up that cast list, it was stacked with names that are now huge. But the show never had quite the same level of success in the UK as it did in New York. It was critically enjoyed, it won a few Olivier Awards for its cast, but it never really caught on with young audiences in quite the same way. Subsequently, there have been a couple of major revivals. There was one not too long ago at the Hope Theatre in Manchester, produced by Aria Entertainment, and then this revival at London's Almeida Theatre. Now, the Almeida is an off-West End venue that is very trendy, does very exciting work, very well received critically, and attracts the kind of audiences that I am always too intimidated to be friends with, because they're really cool. It's just a cool venue full of cool, trendy theatre. I had only been there once before, and that was to see American Psycho in 2013. Now that's interesting because the score for that was written by Duncan Sheik, who also wrote the score for Spring Awakening. This is a particularly exciting invite because I was actually invited via Instagram DM. Oh yes! I have tragic stories about how bad I used to be at online dating, but the Almeida Theatre of all people slid into my DMs, and I was like, yes. So I went to go and see this and was sat next to, of all people, Drag Race UK's Ella Vidae, and now I'm going to let you know what I thought of this revival. But before I do, once again, I got this very exciting program as part of my press visit, and I'm going to be giving it away. If you would like to be in with a chance of winning this very stylish, very thick souvenir program that has information about the cast, about the show, some stunning rehearsal photography, all you have to do, comment down below with hashtag MickeyJoeGiveaway. Make sure you've liked this video and subscribed to my channel as well. Head over to Instagram and Twitter, where there will be some extra chances to win this giveaway by sharing the posts that I've put there at Mickey Joe Theatre on both. Now let's talk about the show. So, Spring Awakening was kind of my black hole of musical theatre, where I know it's this hugely popular show, especially for theatre kids of my generation. I knew that I should know it, but other than a couple of Tony Awards performances and things, I had never really gotten into the show. I hadn't even listened to the entire cast recording. So this was in many ways my first exposure to it as an entire piece. This was a 5-star production. It's a stunning piece of theatre. You know, it was stylish, it was sleek, it was incredibly well staged. The whole thing was set on these big steps, and you could easily look at that and think it was going to hinder the movement, hinder the choreography, hinder the connection between characters, and it really didn't. It was so cleverly done. They were able to utilize it in such an interesting way. Visually, it was all very striking. I loved the costuming. There was this moment where there was this big glass screen at the back of the stage at the highest level, and it turned transparent, and you saw the brick wall behind it and this lit area behind it. That was a sexy piece of theatre. My gosh, that was a moment. Now, I say this was a 5-star production. It teetered on the brink of being just 4 for me, and I'm going to tell you why. As thrilling as the staging was, you know, as brilliant as all of the performances were, as much as they managed to get out of that material, I had issues with connecting to this piece emotionally, and I had issues with the emotional connection between these characters. This is a story based on a play where a lot of traumatic things happen and these big emotions are being thrown around, and I wasn't moved to tears at the moments where I ought to have been crying. I wasn't entirely convinced by these admissions of love that I was seeing. I wasn't immersed in the emotional journey of these characters. I bought into each of their own individual journeys and their own sort of headspaces and their connections with the adults in their lives, but I'm not sure that I bought into the emotions of some of the bigger moments. And that, I think, wasn't helped by the way that some of the moments were staged. I'm about to talk about some spoilers. If you don't want spoilers for this production, mute me now until I go on to the next section, or just go away and come back after you've seen the show. And And it's worth saying, if you are planning on going to see the show, there are more than a few trigger warnings to be aware of, including like themes to do with sexual assault, with suicide. More of that information is available on the Almeida Theatre website. But there are two death moments, neither of which are shown to us as an audience. One of them happens off stage, the other one is implied in a blackout, and you know, it really immerses you in the grief of it all and in the subsequent funeral, but in the actual moments of death, we're very much sheltered from it. It's very much kept from us. This kind of distancing of the audience is deployed quite a bit in this production. The most important moment of the show is when the characters Melchior and Wendler finally are intimate with each other in a hayloft, which is shown here by this rising glass box that they do it in, which carries the implication of you looking at something like this museum piece. It's quite clinical, where it's mammal behavior being observed, which is a really interesting stance, but it does kind of suck all of the romance out of that situation and physically puts a barrier between you and what's happening on stage. It kind of severs the emotional connection the audience has with the narrative at that point, and I struggled with that. Laurie Nyaston is brilliant as Melchior. He has this confidence, he has the angst, he sings beautifully, he moves beautifully. A really brilliant grounding performance at the center of all of this. There were a few other rising stars whose names I didn't know before this, who I absolutely need to be aware of now as well. Bella McLean as Martha made a really big impression on me. I really loved the moments where she sang in a lot of the ensemble numbers. She was just giving an energy that really stood out to me and grabbed me. It's just real star power I noticed from her. Amara as Wendler sang so beautifully. The journey that she goes on, I think, is such a difficult one to portray, and she brought this innocence and fragility to it that was really beautiful. To see her just sort of naively navigating all of the things that were happening to her was really the heart of the show. Catherine Cusack and Mark Lockyer played the two adult figures, and they multi-rolled as various different adults in the lives of all of these teenage characters. Basically, they played physicians, they played parents, they played educators. It's a very clever piece of writing to have them do that because of the central themes of sort of ignorance and prejudice that's shared between all of these characters. It prioritizes the individualism and the identities of all of these young characters while juxtaposing that against the older generation and their stereotypical automatic response almost. I did also very much enjoy Stuart Thompson as Moritz. At the same time, I wanted slightly more from his character. He has some really traumatic moments in the show, and I just wanted a little bit more angst from him. You know, I got that he was sad, I got that he was dealing with these turbulent emotions, but it didn't quite take us all the way up to the climax of where his journey was going to go. And so when we reached that point, it didn't fully make sense to me, and I was left questioning his motivations at that point, which is not what I wanted to be doing. Oh, now this I could talk about at length. There is a song in the second act, and I don't know how I'm going to talk about it on YouTube. The song is called Totally Fucked, and they sing that line over and over again. They did this on the Tony Awards. If you haven't yet looked at that Tony Awards performance, it's bizarre to me that they chose that, but it's also hilarious because it was just so heavily censored. It makes no sense whatsoever as a song to choose, but they did, and you have to love them for that. This song in this production, never has this question of what was the standout moment been easier for me to answer. This was not only the standout moment of this production, it's up there as one of the standout moments of the year. The extent to which I was sat forwards in my seat, grabbing my knee and just like breathing intensely throughout this number. It was such a phenomenally well choreographed, brilliantly staged, incredible piece of theatre. All the tension that had been building, all of the rage, everything that they had been doing up to this point exploded in this electrifying moment. And it made me sad afterwards that the whole show didn't have more of that energy to it, because that number was unstoppable. If the whole show had had that same commitment and that punch and that fire beneath it, it would easily have been the best thing I'd seen this year. The choreography was dynamic, it was delivered flawlessly by the cast, it was just so committed, it was so character driven, there was like huge applause that followed. It was an electric moment. That's really the only way I can describe it. It was huge. So if you're a fan of shows and of scores like Rent, like Tick Tick Boom, like the Lin-Manuel Miranda shows, In the Heights, Hamilton, Next to Normal, other stuff like this, and you haven't seen Spring Awakening already, you should absolutely go and see Spring Awakening. If you're a Glee fan and you're kind of ready for something slightly darker in your appetite, go and see Spring Awakening. Do be aware of the trigger warnings that are made available via the Almeida Theatre website before you attend, because the story can have some quite traumatic moments. If you're a fan of the Netflix show Sex Education, I'm gonna say go see Spring Awakening. This is kind of like the dark, older, musicalized Germanic version of that. If you want to see a cast of diverse, up-and-coming performers being given these great opportunities, being given these great meaty roles, singing this beautiful pop, rock, folky score, authentic characters, queer characters singing about mental health, this is absolutely a show that you need to go and see. If you can get tickets, because it being at the Almeida Theatre, they are quite difficult to come by. Are we potentially going to see a transfer to a West End theatre next year? We can only hope so. I would absolutely go and see this production again. I would absolutely support it transferring to the West End. If you like edgy theatre, great direction, brilliant staging, if you're any kind of a student performer learning about stagecraft, learning about performance, go and see Spring Awakening. There's lots to take away from it. And that is my review of Spring Awakening at the Almeida Theatre. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel. There are plenty more stagey videos coming very soon, including other reviews of musical revivals that I will be seeing very shortly. Also, if you want to support me as a stagey content creator, head over to patreon.com/MickeyJoe Theatre for the chance to support me and gain access to various exclusive photo and video content. Also, don't forget to comment down below with hashtag MickeyJoe giveaway for your chance to win this lovely, stylish Spring Awakening Almeida Theatre souvenir program. And let me know your thoughts on this revival if you have seen it already, or let me know your thoughts on Spring Awakening as a show. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day.
For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey, thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!